The average full-time salary in the UK is around £37,000 a year. That's the number the headlines repeat, the number that makes a person on 40 grand quietly feel like they've arrived, and the person on 32 feel like they're slipping behind. But here's the truth. That number tells you almost nothing about whether you're rich. Because rich isn't a salary, it's a position on a ladder, and most people have no idea which rung they're actually standing on. So that is exactly what we're going to break down today. No fantasies, no fluff, just the maths. We're going to climb the whole ladder, rung by rung, the top 10%, the top 5, and the top 1. And we're going to do it twice. Once for what you earn, and once for what you own. Because those are two completely different ladders, and the gap between them is where almost everyone gets lost. Here's the one thing you need to understand before any number means anything. There are two different kinds of rich in this country, and people confuse them constantly. There's rich by income, what lands in your account each month, and there's rich by wealth, what you've actually built and kept. They are not the same people. A surgeon on $250,000 a year who spends every penny is high income, low wealth. A retired teacher with a paid-off house and a healthy pension is modest income, serious wealth. Almost all the confusion in this whole conversation comes from mixing those two ladders into one, so we're going to keep them apart. Income first, then wealth. Hold that distinction, because everything that follows runs on it. Let's start where most of the country sits. To be a basic rate taxpayer in the UK, you're earning somewhere between roughly £13,000 and £50,000 a year. That single tax band holds the large majority of working adults. Think about that. The bracket most people assume is average stretches from part-time retail all the way to a mid-career professional. It's enormous. If you earn around the 37,000 mark, you are squarely, comfortably in the middle of the country. Not behind, not ahead, the middle, and nowhere near anyone's definition of rich. Now let's level up. To crack the top 10% of earners in the UK, you're looking at a total income of roughly £60,000 to £70,000 a year. That surprises people every time. 60 grand sounds like a lot when you say it out loud, but it isn't private jet money. It's a deputy head, a senior nurse pulling overtime, a software developer 5 years in. The top 10% of earners, 1 in 10. The threshold to be a high earner is closer than most people think, and, for most people, still further away than their current payslip. Both of those are true at once, and sitting in that discomfort is the whole point. Step up again. The top 5% of earners starts at roughly $80,000 a year, and the top 1%, the number everyone wants, begins somewhere around £180,000 of annual income. Not a million. Not even close to a million. 180 grand a year puts you in the top 1% of earners in this entire country. That's the gap between the fantasy of rich and the actual arithmetic of it. The income 1% is a GP partner, a successful solicitor, a regional director. It's a brilliant salary. It is also a salary, and a salary can vanish the moment the job does. So let's pause there, because this is where reality bites. Everything we've just climbed is the income ladder, and income is rented status. The moment you stop working, redundancy, illness, burnout, the income stops, but the lifestyle bills don't. This is the trap nobody on a big salary wants to look at. A high income feels like security. It is not security. It's a fast-flowing river, and the only question that actually matters is how much of that river did you dam up? How much did you keep? That's why we now switch ladders entirely. Forget what people earn. Let's talk about what they're worth. Net worth. Everything you own. Your home equity, your pension, your savings, your investments, minus everything you owe. This is the ladder that decides whether you're actually rich or just busy. And the numbers here tell a completely different story. To sit in the top 10% of households by wealth in the UK, you're looking at a total net worth in the region of £1 to £1.25 million. Before you close the video, understand what's inside that number. For most people in that bracket, the single biggest brick is the house. A paid-down home in much of the country is a vast chunk of that million on its own. The second biggest brick is the pension. Decades of quiet, boring contributions compounding in the background while life happened in the foreground. That's the secret the wealth ladder reveals. Top 10% wealth is rarely flashy. It's a normal house and a serious pension, owned by someone who looks completely ordinary in the supermarket queue. Climb higher. The top 5% by wealth sits north of 1.5 to 2 million, and the top 1% of households by net worth begins somewhere around 3.5 to 4 million pounds. Notice what just happened. On the income ladder, the 1% started at 180 grand. On the wealth ladder, the 1% starts at nearly 4 million. Same phrase, top 1%, wildly different number, because they measure two completely different things. So whenever a headline says the 1%, always ask, 1% of what? Income or wealth? The answer changes everything. Now, here's where reality bites a second time. The hidden trap on the climb. It's tax, and it ambushes high earners trying to convert income into wealth. Between $100,000 and $125,000 of income, you hit the personal allowance taper. Your tax-free allowance is stripped away £1 for every 2 you earn over 100 grand, and that creates an effective marginal tax rate of 60%. 60. Read that again. There is a band in this country where earning an extra pound leaves you with 40 pence, and a huge number of high earners don't even realize they're standing in it. That's the cruel joke of the income ladder. The closer you climb to the top, the harder the system claws back, and the slower your wealth actually grows. Earning more is not the same as keeping more. Full stop. So how do you actually climb the ladder that matters? Here's the rule that actually counts. Stop chasing the salary number and start chasing the savings rate. Not how much you earn, what percentage of it you keep and put to work. Someone on 40 grand saving 20% will, over time, outbuild someone on 80 grand saving nothing. That's not motivation, that's just compounding doing its job. And the UK hands you tools to do it tax-free. The ISA, £20,000 a year you can invest with no tax on the growth, ever. The pension, with tax relief that hands a higher rate taxpayer back 40 pence on every pound contributed. That's the system paying you to climb. And the rule of 72. Divide 72 by your annual return, and that's roughly how many years it takes your money to double. At 7%, your money doubles roughly every 10 years. Do nothing but feed it and wait, and a single decade can move you a whole rung up the wealth ladder. So let's bring it all together. There are 2 ladders, not one. On income, 60 to 70,000 puts you in the top 10%. 80 in the top 5, and 180,000 in the top 1%. On wealth, roughly $1 million for the top 10%, 1.5 to 2 million for the top 5, and 3.5 to 4 million for the top 1. The income ladder tells you how the year is going. The wealth ladder tells you whether you're free. And the whole game, the only game that matters, is converting the first ladder into the second before the river stops flowing. Because here's the real lesson buried under all these numbers. Rich isn't a salary. It's a discipline. It's the gap between what you earn and what you keep, widened patiently over years until the money you've stored does more work than the work you do. The person who looks rich and the person who is rich are very rarely the same person. And now you know exactly which numbers tell them apart. So here's your homework. Don't look at your payslip. Work out your net worth, everything you own minus everything you owe, and find your real rung on the ladder that counts. Then ask the only question that moves you up it. What's my savings rate, and how do I widen the gap this year? If this changed how you think about what rich actually means, hit that subscribe button. I will see you in the next.